Welcome back to Drawn to Darkness, a sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly podcast where we discuss our favorite horror and true crime. If you're longing for more gothic horror in your life, we're here for you. My name is Annie, and I'll be introducing Caroline to my favorite horror movies, podcasts, TV shows, and books.
And my name is Caroline, and I'll be doing the same from the true crime side of things.
Happy New Year.
Oh, is it New Year in the time warp that we are in podcasting?
It is the New Year. Happy 2026.
Hallelujah. Goodbye, 2025. Will not miss ya.
Wasn't there that fuck 2020 thing a few years ago, and it just keeps getting worse?
There was a great meme in 2020 with that Darth Vader at the end of the tunnel at Rogue One. 2020 is behind us, and the light at the end of the tunnel, and then the light at the end of the tunnel is Darth Vader with his...
Perfect. Well, here's to a better 2026. All right, Caroline, this is a big question, but what is your biggest life goal? What's your Everest? Something that would make you feel like you have reached the pinnacle if you accomplished it.
I'm going to be really lame on this question. Growing up, when I was little, people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, I want to be a mommy.
Okay, you've done it then. Every
time I thought I was going to die in an airplane, which is every single time I've been in an airplane, I've been like, just let me have a kid first. Just let me have a kid first. I really felt very like that was my purpose. I feel differently about it now. Not that I regret having them. That just feels a little, I don't know. It doesn't feel like Everest to me.
Yes,
but
it's been done a lot.
Yeah, it's been done.
Who has Everest? Too many people have climbed Everest.
It can be challenging, but it's not like I used a skill, to do it. It's not a skill set. Now I feel like my baseline is I just want to leave a positive imprint and kind of just be forgotten thereafter.
No legacy, just not a legacy of harm.
Right. Please just forget about me. Hopefully when I was around, things were okay for you.
Well, I guess my Everest is to become a writer who makes enough money that I can quit my day job and run writing workshops at a school and go in and out as I please and not have the day-to-day grind of being a teacher. Now, the reason I bring this up is because we are discussing Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein today, and it has been his life goal to adapt this novel, which is interesting because it's a novel and a movie about creation and obsessively seeking a goal. At one point, Victor Frankenstein says, having reached the end of the world, there was no horizon left, and the achievement felt unnatural. And Guillermo del Toro has also talked about feeling a sense of hollowness now that he's done it, this what next feeling when you've achieved the thing you've worked for. I don't think I'd feel that way.
I can relate.
Sense of hollowness, yeah. Inigo Montoya, he felt pretty rudderless after achieving his life goal of vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
He should feel really proud because just today I was listening to How Did This Get Made, which I know we've mentioned before, and they were covering the movie Toys, and they were saying how that script was written over 10 years, and it was a life goal of the person who created it. But almost always in movies and in cinema, when there is a movie that has been a life goal of a big name person who finally achieved it, it's almost always a flop.
Yeah.
I would say that he should feel very proud about this accomplishment because it's not often that it ends up being successful.
Yeah, he should not feel hollow. I don't think he threw away his shot. It's
No.
fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
Obviously, I think it's fantastic. I recommended it, but this ties in with our last episode on A Christmas Carol in terms of its 19th century Victorian setting. It's obviously linked with our episode before that, the Tuskegee syphilis study, in terms of medical experimentation and the impact of syphilis and the careless treatment of bodies. Also Stranger Things, about a month ago, with Dr. Brenner and his treatment of Elle. But one thing I'll say for Dr. Brenner, he does not abandon his creations, unlike Victor Frankenstein. Before we get too much further into it, content warning. I feel it would be a little unkind to present this picture without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you, it may shock you, it may even horrify you. So, if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we warned you. Does that sound like my usual content warning?
No, it does not.
It is the actual content warning from the original 1931 Frankenstein. They say that.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah, this guy comes out and delivers that little speech, and then they start the movie.
I was like, what's with this? It's fancy.
Not the way I usually write, right? But I just found it funny that in 1931, they were essentially doing a little bit of a trigger warning. And obviously, the intent was more to spark interest than to warn people off something that might actually bother them. But trigger warnings are very controversial. And 100 years ago, they did it. Here's my real trigger warning: there is gruesome wolf death, no dogs, but also bad CGI. Toxic father son relationships, child abuse, child and mother mortality, loneliness, abandonment, desecration of corpses, sawing at limbs, body horror, suicide. As usual, check does the dog die for specific triggers, and we will be spoiling this movie and book. You've been warned.
Yeah, you did not warn me enough for the level of gore.
Sorry. I made my parents watch it too. My mom was cringing at some of the sawing scenes. Okay, the story opens with mutinous Danish sailors on an Arctic expedition attempting to free an icebound ship. An explosion in the distance leads them to a gravely injured man, Dr. Victor Frankenstein, who's being pursued by an unstoppable monster. The creature, in his pursuit, kills 6 of these sailors, but they manage to blast a hole through the ice and watch it sink beneath the surface. But Dr. Frankenstein assures them he will be back. As he recuperates, Victor begins to tell his story to the captain: his traumatic childhood, his harsh and abusive father, the death of his mother, giving birth to his brother, and how he discovered how to create life and created an 8-foot-tall, sewn-together man out of body parts pilfered from executed men and bloody battlefields. However, when he made this man, he did not think about what happens after creation and is disappointed in his creature, who appears childlike and unintelligent and can only say one word: Victor. Echoing his father, Victor beats the creature, keeps it chained up alone in a basement, and Elizabeth, the fiancée of Victor's brother William, is the only one to treat the creation with kindness. She criticizes Victor's impatience and cruelty. Victor sets the tower on fire in an attempt to murder his creation, blowing his own leg off when he regrets his decision a moment too late and attempts to re-enter the burning tower. From there, the story is divided into the creature's tale. After escaping the tower, he wanders until he comes across an isolated farm in the mountains where he hides, observing the family, slowly learning to speak and read, and offering them gifts like firewood. After a vicious wolf attack, the family leaves to hunt the wolves, leaving the elderly blind father alone. This man accepts the creature, befriending him and showing him kindness. However, when he leaves the old man alone to discover his past, the elderly man is attacked by wolves and killed. The family comes back at just the wrong moment, blaming the creature for the old man's death and shooting at him. Despite grievous wounds, he recovers and realizes he cannot be killed. He seeks out Victor with one request: to create a companion for him. The request is refused, a conflict ensues, ending in the death of both Elizabeth and William. Victor then chases the creature deep into the Arctic in an attempt to kill him. But after hearing his story, Victor accepts the creature as his son, and the creature forgives him before walking toward the horizon to live, because what other choice does he have? So, what adjective or words come to mind?
I thought it was quite beautiful. I mean, not to be boring and basic, but visually, there's a lot of beautiful, like, use of color and stuff like that. It's a beautifully poetic. I was really thinking about how all of your recommendations tend to be able to, like, close out in a bow or not intentionally.
Well, it's fiction.
Yeah, the true
Yeah.
crime stuff doesn't have that, but it's quite lovely.
Yeah, I was going to go with vocative, opulent, beautiful as well. I agree. It's gorgeous. I wish I could have seen this in cinemas. It's one of those movies that would have been really good on the big screen. It's cathartic. I felt really emotionally wrung out after watching it. I'm really happy that there's this resurgence in interest in the Gothic. Eggers is making a werewolf movie coming up, and there was Nosferatu earlier this year or last year. There's going to be a new Christmas Carol. So please, keep the
Wednesday.
Gothic stuff coming. Wednesday, yes. Okay, fun facts. First of all, I love a joke or a meme about the name Frankenstein versus Frankenstein's monster, and like making fun of the way elite literary types lord it over everyone. Always makes me laugh.
Literally, I went to dinner with 2 girlfriends last week, one of whom really loves when I shout her out. Hi, Sibel. She's the one who was friendly with the Maisel brothers. Anyway, she was saying that she didn't realize that Frankenstein was the name of the scientist, not the monster. And I was like, how did you not know that? Even I knew that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people learn it from the joke.
I learned it from social media.
Yeah, even if you haven't engaged with the book or the movie, it comes up, right? Other fun facts: Jacob Elordi had his dog on set. There are the cutest photos of him in full makeup cuddling his dog, and it's very cute. I believe the drawings are Guillermo del Toro's, so a lot of the drawings that you see in it are by him. The font on the film's poster is the actual handwriting of Mary Shelley, which I thought was a very Cool little nod to her.
Mm.
And there's minimal CGI, a lot of hand-built sets. There's this really great behind-the-scenes documentary on Netflix that shows the building of the sets, and it's just fantastic to watch. All the mood boards and the costume design and the attention to color, just all the thought that went into this. It's pretty fantastic. Another interesting fun fact about this movie is the way it was released. This is not the type of thing you usually see coming out of Netflix. It only had 3 weeks in cinema, so it wouldn't have been able to make much. It had a $120 million budget, 3-week theatrical release. I don't know how much it made, but it's a very different way to release a movie. So I don't know. Will we see more of Netflix doing this, like doing something really big budget? Will it draw in more people to Netflix that weren't already subscribers? Because I didn't give Netflix any extra money. I was already a subscriber.
Well, I'm sure that'll also depend on the pending mergers and acquisitions that are going on.
Murders and executions. Every time I hear that, I think of that American Psycho line.
Which I haven't seen.
Another thing you got to see.
No, I don't want. Please don't make me see things with torture.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't seen it, because I've heard that the torture is just really epic, and I
heard the book is worse in terms of the description of torture, which I haven't read. My husband was like, don't read it, because it's really bad. And if he thinks I can't handle it, it must be bad.
Yeah. I would think so.
So, have you read the book?
No, I started to listen to it on my travels after the Christmas Carol, but I just ran out of time. I was trying to listen to it before we recorded. Have you?
Yes, I have. I think I would have read it high school, university age, and then I read it a year or two ago. So it was pretty fresh in my memory, but not fresh enough that the changes bothered me that much. So this is obviously an adaptation of Mary Shelley's 1818 novel, so we should start with her. The origin story of this, I feel like, rivals Stephen King's Carrie, maybe better than Stephen King's Carrie, which was famously fished out of a trash can by his wife, Tabitha King. I found this podcast called Betwixt the Sheets, and the host recounts her journey. They were backpacking around Western Europe. Shout out to Friends.
And Ken Adams.
Often we think of these 19th century people as kind of stuffy, prim, and proper English people, but they were really quite bohemian, lots of sleeping around and having affairs, and Lord Byron was with them. Do you have a Lord Byron reference that you'd like to make, maybe?
Mad, bad, and dangerous to know. That was him, and that's Dylan McKay.
I wrote that down. Drink for 90210. Caroline's mentioning 90210. I was like, I'm going to set you up.
90210 and Friends, within a minute, this might be my favorite episode.
Who said this is stuffy, gothic 19th century stuff, right? So she ran away with married father, Percy Bysshe Shelley, who might have also had an affair with her sister Claire while Mary was pregnant. And that at one point, according to this podcast, they were kind of sleeping on this riverboat on the Rhine, and they met German medical students who likely told them about Frankenstein's castle. So that's kind of where the seed was planted in her brain that came together that fateful summer where they were all on Lake Geneva. So here's an interesting connection between Charles Dickens and Mary Shelley. Dickens grew up during the mini ice age. Have you ever heard about that?
Oh,
the year without a summer?
Yes.
So there was this volcanic eruption of Mount Tambora in what's now Indonesia, and it caused the coldest summer on record at that time, and it was called the Year Without a Summer. This happened when Charles Dickens was a child, but perhaps both of them were inspired in their future writing about the Gothic. So basically, to quote the Cat in the Hat, it was too wet to go out and too cold to play ball, so they sat in the house and did nothing at all. That's when Lord Byron came up with the idea to have a storytelling contest. Mary Shelley couldn't think of anything to write at first, and then she had this dream about the moment the creation looms over the creator's bed, and that was the spark. And I love stories about the spark, like what brought, especially something so iconic as this, into creation. So a little more about Mary Shelley's biography. Lots of loss. Unlike Charles Dickens, who really beat the Victorian odds with 9 out of 10 children surviving childhood, Mary was pregnant 5 times, 1 miscarriage, 3 children died, 1 within a few days, another after a few weeks of dysentery, and another around 3 of malaria, and only 1 survived childhood. Her mother died, giving birth to her. So just death, death, death all around her. And I found this quote. You can read her journals, and there's lots of really interesting, poignant stuff in there. So she was writing to a friend asking for her to, or him, I'm not sure who it was, to come visit. And she wrote, "My baby is dead. Will you come to see me as soon as you can? I wish to see you. It was perfectly well when I went to bed. I awoke in the night to give it suck. It appeared to be sleeping so quietly that I would not awake it. It was dead then, but we did not find out till morning. From its appearance, it evidently died from convulsions. Will you come? You are so calm a creature, and Shelley is afraid of a fever from the milk. I am no longer a mother now." And that's so sad.
is.
So just a reminder, I feel like we came down a little hard on scientific researchers in the Tuskegee episode because we were referring to those specific researchers, but we should be really grateful for modern medicine because this was the historical reality for a lot of people.
Yeah, and actually, funnily enough, my colleagues who I'm working with right now, they are actually in Brisbane. They're at a conference.
Oh.
Yeah, they're actually discussing how to prevent additional losses in pregnancy after prior loss at any point in pregnancy or shortly after birth. So, and they're there because apparently Australia is like at the forefront of maternal fetal medicine.
Good for us. I wish them the best of luck then. It wasn't just maternal loss with Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley and Mary Shelley losing her own babies. Percy also died in 1822. He drowned. And so they were only together for 8 years. Some of her other inspirations, she weaved in themes from Prometheus, the myth of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give to humans and then was doomed to have his liver eternally eaten by an eagle, which is referenced in the movie. Harlander threatens Victor, "I will be the eagle that feasts on your liver," when Victor refuses to put his syphilitic brain in the new body. And also Milton's Paradise Lost, when Adam says, "Did I request thee, maker, from my clay, to mold me man? Did I solicit thee from darkness to promote me?" Which I suppose is something any child might ask of us someday when the world they were born into can be quite cruel. Now, the other creator we need to discuss is Guillermo del Toro. Have you watched many Guillermo del Toro movies?
Can you name others? Because I am not sure.
So I haven't. I was kind of realizing how many gaps I have in my Guillermo del Toro journey. Crimson Peak comes up in relation to this a lot as having a similar kind of opulent gothic tone. The Shape of Water is a Who's the Real Monster story, Hellboy, but I haven't seen any of those. And I do remember being absolutely blown away by Pan's Labyrinth. Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah. The old one with David Bowie.
No. That's just Labyrinth.
That's just Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth. No.
It's about like the Spanish Civil War and a little girl who kind of goes into an alternative realm, and it's got this really scary monster with hand eyes.
I mean,
It's
I guess
horrifying.
if he does horror, then I probably have not.
Kind of like fairy tale fantasy horror, I'd say. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. Pan's Labyrinth is very, very good. You should watch it. And he also did this Netflix series called Cabinet of Curiosities, which was just like episodic horror tales. It was cute because he would always come out at the beginning kind of in this like Hitchcock way and present something
love
about
that.
the story that was associated with like an object. So he had the cabinet and he'd like pick something out and talk about it and then present the story. So it was fun. So as we said, this is a passion project for him. He first read it at 11 and he wanted it to be operatic. He calls himself a Frankenstein groupie. He has a museum practically devoted to it in his house. You should see the pictures. It's just like sculptures and paintings and objects, and it's very cool. He said seeing Boris Karloff changed his life in the 1931 version. Have you seen that one?
No. This is the first like iteration I've seen. I haven't even seen the Gene Wilder like Young Frankenstein.
I haven't seen that one.
Which my husband loves. Drink, I mentioned my husband.
I feel like it's interesting because we know Frankenstein, right? But how many of us have actually read or watched it? And I think I saw somewhere there's like 400 versions of it or something.
Oh my God.
That might count like plays, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of iterations of it. Another reason I love Guillermo del Toro is his stance on AI. He said he'd rather die. He's very anti-AI, which is good for him.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about setting. The novel's set in the late 1700s, but Del Toro changed the timeline to make it in like 1856, 57-ish during the Crimean War. Some scenes are in Edinburgh, which is a city I lived in, and I don't know if there's a more Gothic city that exists, like with this historic buildings and cobblestones everywhere, though when I was there were no literal puddles of blood to step over, which is nice. We discussed last week in our Christmas Carol episode how gross the Dickensian era was, and I think you see that here. There's a scene with women crossing the streets by walking over planks because they were so foul. But at the same time, I think one of the things that's interesting about this movie is it's not true to history, right? Like nobody dressed the way these characters dressed. He hasn't hamstrung himself with authenticity, which I think is an interesting choice.
I thought that was cool. And I saw some TikTok clips about that, taking this like 70s spin on the costumes and stuff. And I think it worked out well.
I love it. Del Toro said he wanted Victor to be like Mick Jagger.
And mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I also thought it was cool connecting this aspect to the hamstrongness or lack thereof. Like they still use the cool old guns, like when the guys are shooting and stuff like that. Like there's ways that you reinforce, I think, the timeline and the circumstances that you're trying to build while not putting yourself in a corner about having it be authentic. These are such good choices.
And I think being caged by authenticity would be really hard, right? If you're
Yeah.
willing to kind of just let that go, you've got a lot more
Yeah, but
freedom.
still like input bits and pieces of that so that it feels real even and you can like give yourself plausible deniability or excuse some of the things that are not authentic because enough of it puts you in that place.
If you're too historically accurate, the places where you can't recreate that or you make a mistake will be criticized.
Totally. So, on the subject of authenticity, but not, another aspect I thought was interesting was that the siblings don't look like siblings. Like, clearly, Dr. Frankenstein, Oscar Isaac, is Latino, and his brother is clearly not. And they have the same parents, right? So, his brother, like, what's his name? William Christopher?
William, he looks very English
Right.
private school boy. Yeah.
Totally. Like they do not look like brothers, which I wrote this line down, which I was thinking about as you were talking about Mary Shelley's life. Like he was the breeze, I was the storm cloud. I loved that line so much. I thought it said so much with so few words, a thing I don't do. I could relate to that. I definitely feel like with my sibling, like I'm the storm cloud and he's the breeze. I just felt like it was a very beautiful and relatable line.
Well, I think that reflects Guillermo del Toro's life, that he viewed himself as kind of the weird, introverted, literary kid, and then his brother was athletic and the favorite of
Mm.
his father. So he's probably reflecting that lived experience. Apparently, Guillermo del Toro, like Wes Craven, creates a good atmosphere on set, from what I've read.
Well, that is nice to hear because certainly a lot has come out over the last decade or so on not great set environments of movies we love.
He's gone big on this. They built a mini tower for the castle
Yeah.
explosion. They built the ship, at least half of it, like one side. You don't see both sides. And the advantage of this building of the sets is that you're not hiding the stage. You can use these wide shots that make it really feel grand.
The use of color too. I kept being like, "Whoa, that dress is so red. That dress is so green." You know, what does that mean? I wish I knew more.
Yeah, I think it was to have a consistent color motif for these
Mm.
different characters. And you see I guess the bejeweled tones of the creation scenes really contrast well with like the starkness
Mhm.
of the Arctic scenes. Yeah, and I don't think they made that color of that dress back then. Right? Like
No.
that like really turquoise and magenta dress that Elizabeth
Yeah.
is wearing at one point. Victor wears a lot of red, which I guess echoes the bloodiness of his mother's death, of what he's doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, Elizabeth seems to be mostly like greens and turquoises because she's more natural and pure, like the insects she likes. If you watch that documentary, you can see that the mood boards that the art department made. I think my favorite part is okay, it's that scene where Elizabeth comes up from visiting the creature and Victor's just brooding on the couch in that really shiny silk green dressing gown, like waiting to pick a fight with her. And there's moss growing all around him. And it just looks like a painting. It reminded me of the book Mexican Gothic, which I want to cover very soon as well. And there's some symbolism. There's the circle visual motif. You see like the round window in the captain's quarters, also the round window in the lab, the hole in the floor of the lab. You know, perhaps that's the circle of life that Victor is disrupting. There's a lot of light as well. The wordplay of like sun, S-U-N sun and S-O-N sun. And
Yeah.
yeah, walking towards the light.
On those round windows, I just happen to be consuming a lot of stuff where there's round windows. I feel like recently.
Like Wicked?
No, I have not seen Wicked. I did see it on Broadway. I didn't love it. I'm the only person on the planet. Anyway,
Well,
moving
you're
on.
not the only person on the planet who didn't like the second movie. I am one of
Uh,
those people.
I saw it on Broadway and I was like, I don't get it. I'm sorry. I know I'm the problem. Anyway, Doctor Strange has a round window. Wednesday, there's a round window. Star Wars, there's a round window. So I like asked my husband, who is an architect, I was like, how often are there giant round windows like in a architectural setting? And he was like never. Like it's very, very unusual. So I feel like every time I see it, it's definitely for symbolism purposes because it's not practical.
No, it's very grand and visually stunning, but yeah, you don't see that in your average McMansion, do you?
No.
Yeah, I'm not a film student. I don't know much about techniques. And I did see some complaints about the lighting in some of the reviews I read, but I loved it the way it was lit. Del Toro seems to be really proud of his single source lighting, like actual windows letting in the lighting, and I thought it was gorgeous. It reminded me of like a Vermeer painting with light streaming in through one window like that.
I watched it on my iPad, so the lighting
Oh no.
was not great. Yeah. So I was constantly just like moving around my house while watching it.
You should watch it on a proper TV at some point. I'm guessing this would be a really amazing movie for film students to analyze
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of just production and film techniques, set design. The care that went into this is mind-boggling. Do you remember when Downton Abbey left a plastic water bottle on a mantle?
I thought that was Game of Thrones.
You sure it was Downton Abbey? Maybe, I don't know.
Wait, one of them left a Starbucks cup and the other was a water bottle, I think. I think it happened in
Maybe.
more than one set.
More than one big period piece where these things would not exist.
An expensive to make piece. And money making.
I don't think Guillermo del Toro would have let that happen.
No.
Did you have any favorite scenes or imagery? Like I've just mentioned the moss with Victor sitting waiting for Elizabeth. Did you have any moments that really stood out to you?
I mean, I really loved her dresses. Her dresses were just so stunning. Between the hoop skirt aspect and the color of them, how vibrant they were. And it's such a contrast to the way she carries herself, too. Like, her dress says, "Look at me, I'm here." And her body says, like, "I'm not sure why I'm here."
Which ties in with her dying words. I loved the imagery of the creature climbing out of the ice after he falls down into the water. I thought that was really stunning. I love all the Arctic stuff. One of my favorite historical mysteries, which was recently sort of figured out, is the Terror and the Erebus going missing. And that was during that Arctic age of exploration, and they got frozen in and couldn't get out, and everybody died. And they only recently, maybe in the past 5 to 10 years, found the ship.
Yeah, it reminded me of Captain America, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it did. I'm wondering if there's another Avengers
Might
thing that
be.
this reminds me. There might be, yes.
Might be. Yeah, might be. Might have
Yeah.
looked up whether Stanley was inspired by this to create
Yeah.
Hulk, and he was.
And Ultron.
Oh, yeah, Ultron. Totally.
Didn't think of Hulk, but I was thinking of
Yeah.
Ultron. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so Hulk is sort of a mix between Jekyll and Hyde and Frankenstein inspired.
Very cool.
The aspect that he can't die made me think about whenever the Hulk was trying to end his own life, that he was like, the other guy spit it out or whatever, and that it's like impossible.
This curse of immortality. Well, that is one of the main differences between the book and the novel. So there's quite a few changes. I said the book and the novel and the movie. So diehard fans of the novel have objected to some of these changes. I still think it communicates the spirit of the book really well, even if it's not 100% faithful to every plot point. If you want to catch up on it, I listened to this podcast. I've listened to them a number of times. It's an Australian comedian podcast. It's called Book Cheat, and they summarize classics so that you don't have to read them.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. Like a podcast that is Cliff Notes?
It's a comic Cliff Notes podcast. I remember I listened to the Lord of the Flies one, I think, and whoever the comedian was on made me laugh. It's different comedians that come on, but I highly recommend it. It's fun.
I'm kind of mad at you that you're telling me about this podcast now.
Okay.
I think we're in a fight.
Okay. Book Cheat. Go listen.
I brought it down.
You can,
don't you worry.
So I actually think some of the changes are better. Don't come at me, book nerds, but it's not a perfect novel. Sometimes I think we talked about this with A Christmas Carol, that we have this reverence for the classics that, isn't always merited. And a lot of this book is like, huh, why are you talking about that? And an editor might have been like, Mary, honey, cut that, change that. That doesn't make sense. For example, the monster who's been wandering through the forest kind of comes into a town, this is in the book, and discovers a child playing. And guess who that child is? It's William Frankenstein. And he's like, oh, I hate that Frankenstein guy. And he murders the kid, right? Like, what a coincidence, And so that's one of the big changes, is that William is an adult man, not a baby, which makes the monster much more monstrous, that he just comes across this child and murders him. And then he frames the maid, I think, or the nanny. So a lot of these changes are about making Victor less sympathetic and the creature more sympathetic. Yeah. So it's less complex, I guess, but I kind of liked it better.
So who is Elizabeth going to marry then, if William's a baby?
Elizabeth is going to marry Victor.
So they're in love.
Basically, well, I don't know. I mean, they're
in love by 1800 standards.
Right. So Elizabeth is Victor's
Betrothed.
adopted sister, and she's always just been like adopted for him,
Ugh.
right? So it's kind of like, oh, here's this girl for you. So he grew up with her as sister, cousin, future wife. That was kind of always the understanding. It's weird.
Wow, that is such a weird connection to toys. Because
Oh, okay. I
spoiler
haven't watched
alert,
Toys.
if you haven't seen Toys, the 1992 Robin Williams movie, but he has a sister in that movie, and she is actually a robot that the dad, who's a toy maker, made when Robin Williams' mom died to be like a companion.
Well, that's like Megan, the robot horror movie Megan. She is a toy created for the child because her parents died.
Uh,
And then she goes bad. That's another Frankenstein story. Just realized.
or another Toys
Does
story.
the toy in Toys go bad?
No, but she is
Okay.
a
Because it's
sister
not a
who
horror movie.
exists for the sake of the man. I bet Toys doesn't pass the Bechdel test.
No. Well, I think Elizabeth is given more to do here, which is good. I still don't think she's
Yeah.
given quite enough to do. I have still some criticism, but in the book, basically, the scene does happen where the creature asks Victor, "Make me a companion," and in the book, Victor agrees. He's like, "You know what? Fair, I'll do that." And he goes off to do it, and then he realizes that this is a horrible idea, and he changes his mind and he tears the future woman companion apart. And that's when the creature says, "I will be with you on your wedding night." And then he goes and kills Elizabeth on purpose, premeditated. So again, much more monstrous.
So that happens in the Al Pacino version because my husband was telling me about that. I guess Al Pacino is in a version of this movie?
No, Robert De Niro.
Sorry. Yeah, Al Pacino would be weird.
Yes. I was like, there's an Al Pacino version?
Oh, yeah.
You are getting your Italian mobsters mixed up.
I'm the first person ever to mix those guys up, I'm sure.
Was there a Ray Liotta version? Tony Soprano?
There should have been.
He should be. He would be a good Frankenstein.
They would both.
Would have been.
Rest in
Too
peace,
late,
both
yeah.
of them.
So I guess this idea of the monster in the book still has humanity. He does more monstrous things, but he is capable of thought. He doesn't want to. He is very clearly made into a monster, but then the things he does are more abhorrent. We got to give Mary Shelley like so much credit for this because I feel like this is probably one of the first examples of a monster not just being pure evil and having that complexity and acknowledging that monsters can be made as opposed to just, we're good, it's bad.
Are you saying that a woman achieved a first and that she's underappreciated for that? That doesn't happen.
And, people tried to give credit to her
Of
husband.
course. Of course they did.
Oh, he must have written it. Bullshit. Okay. Now I'm mad. Not at you. We're not fighting. Except about book cheap.
Yeah, we are fighting, but not about this.
Okay, not about that. I'm mad at the world, not you. Okay, another difference is that in the book, as soon as he succeeds in animating the creature, like the second Victor sees him looming over the bed, he's out. And in the movie, he's like, oh yeah, like I did it. And then it's more of a slow disenchantment and move towards regret because it's harder than he expects. And I like that because it never made sense to me in the book. It was like, wait, you don't even give this thing a chance? Like you're immediately going to leave? So I like that it gives us this petulant, impatient, abusive Victor who didn't get what he wanted. The other main difference, and I think a lot of people think the lightning laboratory scene is how Mary Shelley wrote it because it's in the 1931 movie. Like, even if you haven't seen it, you probably have that it's alive moment in your head.
Sure.
And in the book, it's just like, oh, I figured it out. There's no lightning. There's no raising the body. She does talk about collecting parts from charnel houses and things like that. But in this, I like the way they made it like a project to be managed. As opposed to either nothing, which is in the book, just like I figured it out, a lone mad scientist with an assistant in the 1931 version, and then just like this massive project. One thing I don't understand is how any of this works. It reminds me of the Princess Bride torture device in the Pit of Despair, where it's like all these knobs and things happening. But why would that make anyone feel pain?
Yeah, I totally agree. But I also don't understand a lot about the way the current world, the world currently that I exist in. I don't understand the way a lot of things work either. So I was just sort of like, this is a science thing and I don't understand it. I mean, I also know it's fiction, so that helps.
That's how I felt reading The Martian and Project Hail Mary. Like there's a lot of science in there and I'm just like gloss over that, trust that he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, a chemistry occurs.
Yeah, that's Wine and Crime, right?
Yeah, TM Wine and Crime. It's actually Elizabeth something, the blood science. They're quoting her the way she's explaining her blood test.
I thought they just made that up when
No,
I hear you say that.
no.
Okay. The other big change, I think, is there's no blowing up of the tower because he just leaves, which I liked that moment where he changes his mind to go back. I feel like that
Hmm.
spectacle is pretty cool, and the last minute change of heart is more tragic. There's some other homages to 1931, the lightning, the dark and stormy night, the creature's hands. There's a lot of hand acting going on. The interest in something floating. In the 1931 movie, the monster comes across a little girl and she's throwing flowers into the water. And then he's like, "Oh, flowers are beautiful. You are a beautiful thing." And he tosses the little girl into the water and she drowns. So he didn't mean it. He's childlike. I think that floating leaf is an homage to the 1931 movie.
Well, it's interesting. The whole he didn't mean it, it was childlike. I feel like the same thing can be said about the way that he's cruel in the book, as you described. Like those sound like the behaviors of a person whose frontal lobe is not fully developed, and so they don't understand that their actions have permanent consequences. And just like a child who bites or hits another child when they get angry, they're not going to be an adult necessarily who would punch a person when they get angry.
Perhaps the murder of the little boy, William, but the murder of Elizabeth is
Isn't
very
it?
premeditated.
Okay.
So I would say by that point, I think he knows what he's doing. Again, he has been harmed, but he's still making a very cruel choice to hurt someone who's not involved in this. She didn't do anything. She never encounters him until he murders her. Also, the use of fire in the 1931 movie, the villagers chase him down, so it's kind of exploring mob violence. And I was really surprised by how sad I felt watching the fear of the creature burning to death in this windmill-like thing and
Mm-hmm.
screaming in fear. It's pretty powerful for like a 1931 movie that doesn't have really any bells and whistles that we have today. Yeah, I think those are the main things about the book, movie, original movie differences. So let's talk about character. What did you think about Victor's father?
Oh yeah, what was he from?
Game of Thrones. He's
Oh
Tywin
yeah.
Lannister.
I forgot to look him up. I was immediately when I saw The Blind Man, which we'll get to. I was immediately like, children in the corridor. Anyway, yeah, I mean, what a dick. Like when he was making his pregnant wife eat
Ugh, so gross.
I had pregnancies where I craved meat, but you also like there are things that repulse you for no reason whatsoever, and being forced to eat it's just ugh, awful to watch.
Rosemary in Rosemary's Baby craved raw meat,
Right.
but that was her choice.
Yes, exactly. It was her choice. Yeah, I didn't like the dad.
Charles Dance, Tywin Lannister, he's really good at being a bad dad. He's like the
Yeah,
same character.
disappointed with disgust. It was weird to see him like love a son. I was like, I don't believe it.
Doesn't feel genuine.
Yeah, not buying that.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is, what Guillermo del Toro probably felt like he experienced growing
Mm.
up, that he has some trauma from his own father-son relationship. I thought it was kind of ironic that he was beating Victor for getting medical facts wrong when he's wrong. He's like, "Tell me about the four humors." It's like, no, that's not
Yeah.
right.
He also mentions the tricuspid valve. And I know the word tricuspid from Little Shop of Horrors, which I think this is like the second or the third time
Yeah.
I'd mentioned
Drink
that.
for Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Victor. I love Oscar Isaac.
Me too. Me
I
too.
know you do.
Yeah.
I'm less forgiving of the newer Star Wars trilogy than you are, but I love him in The Force Awakens. I think he's fantastic.
The chemistry that he and Finn and Ray have, he and Finn in particular, but the little trio is one of the things that is redeemable about the newer movies.
Yeah. So he plays Victor Frankenstein as a much more despicable character than in the novel. And perhaps the character in the novel should be viewed as just as despicable, but he's telling his story more. So maybe he's presenting himself in a better light as an unreliable narrator. But yeah, I find Victor pretty much 100% narcissistic, petulant man-child ass.
Totally. I mean, he had one, I think he was the one who said perhaps God is inept. And,
Yes.
I felt that. I appreciated that line. Don't come at me, listeners. But when he said, I said, drop it, and the monster, the creature, doesn't do what he says, and then he punishes him, he's always like, I didn't do this. You did this. And it's
So
like,
mean.
no, you did this. That's gaslighting. I believe.
Yeah,
Can't say more than one word on the frickin' day he's born.
I know.
Most babies don't do that.
And he does say another word.
Yeah.
He says Elizabeth, and then he's jealous. Say the one word and I won't kill you. And he still lights that match. He's definitely giving Beauty and the Beast Gaston, I think, when Elizabeth kind of chooses the creature
Yeah.
and he shoots at it. I saw a hot take that perhaps Victor wanted to kill Elizabeth because she didn't choose him. What do you think?
I
Is he
wouldn't
that bad?
I believe he's that bad. For sure. I was shocked that he apologized at the end. I did not think he would do that.
I don't forgive him, even if the
No.
creature does. I know you've said before you don't believe in the adage that forgiveness is necessary to move on.
No, but in this instance, I probably would say I forgave someone and just be lying because they're about to die anyway. So what does it matter? I don't need them to suffer in their last moments for the sake of whatever they did to me, but it doesn't mean they're forgiven. It
Yeah,
means
I
I'm a
mean,
better person.
you'll give them that feeling of forgiveness, even
Right.
if you're like, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I forgive you too. And then they're dead. And I'm like, fucker. Like, I don't know.
There's one scene where he's showing off his thing to Elizabeth and William, and I feel like it really evoked imagery of the slave trade, right? He's calling him it. He's in chains. He's kind of slapping at him and turning him around. It's so dehumanizing. And I think it's really important when he says, I have created something truly horrible in you or something like that. And he's like, no, not something, someone.
Right. There were so many good lines like that. The usage of it versus being a person.
Something, someone.
Yeah, something, someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his fatal flaw is obviously hubris. He thinks he can conquer death. I keep quoting Pet Cemetery. Sometimes dead is better. So lots of literature is teaching us not to play God. There's that shots fired, God is inept moment. His dad reminds him at one point, no one can conquer death when he's criticizing the dad for not being able to save the mom. But obviously the consequences are not great by trying to take this power.
I feel very lucky that Death Becomes Her was like a favorite film of mine as a child because it made me never want to conquer death. It made me feel like very aware of the dangers. Not that it's a true story, but it just sort of very young instilled in me like being living and breathing doesn't mean you're living.
I think there's a lot of media that explores the curse of immortality. Often
Sure.
vampire stuff, like What We Do in the Shadows, Nadia and Gregor, right? Like she keeps having to lose her lover because she outlives him. And Aragorn and who's Liv Tyler's character in Lord of the Rings?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember her name.
It doesn't matter. Last week, we discussed the horror of the inevitability of death that Scrooge is facing. And for example, Harlander in this wants immortality and Victor's seeking to control mortality, but the creature's cursed with it. So the one who doesn't want it has it. He calls life merciless. At one point, he says, there's but one remedy to all pain, death, a gift you two had denied me. And there's a lot of references to death, like the Memento Mori painting that Harlander has set up with that nude model. And both the creature and Elizabeth have skull holding moments, which is obviously referencing Hamlet and To Be or Not to Be, but the choice to be or not to be is taken from him. He has no choice but to live on, which is a horror.
It's interesting, like even the structure that they begin at the end. And I always love when that happens, when time is messed with, not in terms of time travel, but in terms of storytelling as a device. I don't remember what episode it was where we talked about like whether it's better to have your plan or not have your plan in the beginning. Like we talked about the British series, how they usually know.
Plotters and pantsers.
Yeah. And I feel like this concept of like a story isn't told until its end. And so like having something really have its meaning or its purpose or its legacy, if you will, it has to end for that to happen. So even in the way that she chose to tell the story, it's reinforcing the message of the story.
I do have some minor criticism of that as a plot device or as a framing device. I don't mind it here, but so as someone who's trying to get a book published, you have to have your first 10 pages be awesome. And so I think you see that in a lot of books where it starts with the end because you got to start with action. Otherwise, the agents or editors are like, whatever, this is boring. And so there's no room for just like normal chronological storytelling because the, I guess, low attention span reader or viewer needs to know there's going to be action. So I didn't mind it here, but I do object to the overuse of that device, particularly in books, because I think it's it's to appeal to this. Yeah, it just speaks to how hard it is to get something published. Okay, so we were talking about Victor. Oh, one other thing about Victor. He drinks milk.
Red flag.
Did you see Inglorious Bastards?
Oh, yes. Well, it's on my recommendations, actually, obviously, because of Christoph Waltz.
So Christoph Waltz, that first scene, which is one of the tensest scenes in a movie I've ever seen in my life, where he's drinking milk. I was like, oh my God, is he referencing Hans Landa? Like, as he was drinking milk. But I looked it up. Apparently, there's a lot of milk drinking villains, like Alex in A Clockwork Orange, the bad guy in No
Sure.
Country for Old Men. I found this list, but those are the ones that stood out to me that I knew.
There's milk drinking good guys. It just got to be blue.
Who? Who's a milk drinking good guy?
It's a blue milk.
Luke Skywalker and his weird milk. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's blue milk,
It was
it's a
gross
good guy.
Well, yeah, I wonder how many good guys drink milk in movies besides Luke. Anyway.
Do you think that's why the the milk lobby needed to do the Got Milk campaign to combat all the bad guys?
Yeah, what would they have been combating? A Clockwork Orange. I don't think many of these things came out, though, before the Got Milk ads. Maybe we need a resurgence
Clockwork
of Got Milk
Orange
ads.
definitely came out before.
Yeah, so they could have been reacting to that. But I think it's significantly before.
Yeah, too much before. What a weird thing.
Anyway, moments where I sympathized with Victor was when Harlander asks him to like put his brain in the body right at the moment and like messes up with the plans. And he's like, no, like, what are you thinking? That was my moment where I was like, okay, I see you, Victor. I guess the only other defense of Victor is that, yeah, he's a sad little boy who has been abused, dead mother.
Right. Hurt people, whatever.
Not an excuse, though.
No.
All right, well, let's talk about the creature. Played by Jacob Elordi, who's originally from Brisbane, where I live. Boy, is he tall and handsome.
Even as a creature. I don't really want to call it
Even
the
as a
monster.
creature. I think creature is the preferred term for this particular movie, but it's monster generally in other.
And did
works of
he
media
end
about
up with a
Frankenstein.
name?
I don't think so.
Because when he was talking about Ozymandias, I was thinking, oh, is his name Ozyman?
It would have been nice if the old man gave him a name.
Right.
If he did, they didn't show it.
He called him the spirit of the woods.
Spirit of the Forest?
Yeah.
The stuff with the old man was so sweet. But let's talk a little bit more about just Jacob Elordi. So his physicality, his height, such a presence. He like moves the ship like Jean Valjean. Well, I thought that was pretty cool.
Very cool.
I know you're an Andrew Garfield fan, but I'm glad he dropped out. Did you know he was slated for this role?
No, I didn't. That breaks my heart. I really love him. He's on my list.
I know you do. I know, but I feel like he's so sweet. Like his face is so sweet. And I don't know, I think Jacob has a face that can be haughty and mean. I don't see Andrew Garfield capable of that kind of face. Jacob Elordi's more evil, handsome.
Did you see his real face though much? I mean, a makeup artist can work with a sweet face. On a creature like this, I was the Wicked Witch once, and my nose was not actually that big.
You do have such a sweet face. Well, yeah, hours of makeup. Elordi talks about being like a monastic experience, like 10, 11 hours to put the makeup on. So like, how long did they film? If it took him 10, 11 hours to put the makeup on, did they just film for like 2 days straight to make it worth it? I don't know.
I think that all the time when I hear things like that.
The fact that he was not fazed, I guess he didn't even ask about the makeup when Del Toro interviewed him. And he was like, this is my guy. And his eyes, that he can act a lot with his eyes. Have you seen Euphoria or Saltburn, which are some of his previous big things? And Elvis, he was the Elvis.
No, I've not seen anything. I have not watched Euphoria because I just feel like it'll be too hard emotionally to watch, but I've heard it's incredible.
Hard emotionally. I watched one season of it, and then I went like to class the next day, like shell shocked, and was like, "Please tell me it's not like this." To my year 10 students, like,
I know. I think I need all of my kids to be like in college by the time I watch it.
Yeah. Well, such a different interpretation of this creature. I think most of us instantly picture the Boris Karloff version with the bolts in the neck. And interestingly enough, I have this one student in my class who is deaf, so I've been learning. I've studied sign language in the past, and I learned that the sign for Frankenstein is kind of just like referring to the bolts in the neck.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's how iconic it is. Like, that's the sign.
Is it the same here? Do you know?
Yeah, I looked it up in ASL as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
cool.
like either pointing to the bolts or like going like this or something. Well, you can't see this but yeah, like it refers to the two bolts.
This is a great discussion for a podcast.
Yes. Not a visual medium.
Sign language. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I loved this vision of him, that it's such a departure from the Karloff version because I feel like if you went too similar, it wouldn't work. And he's like marble, like a bluish tint and greenish tint at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the way Elordi plays it. I'm sure Andrew Garfield could have done it too, I guess. But are we fighting again?
No, we're not. You're right, because his eyes are too sweet, and you really can't change eyes.
You can't change eyes.
Yeah. Everything else in the
He's just too
face
sweet.
you could change, but the shape of his eyes, they are
Mhm.
too, like, nutty. What's the nut shape I'm thinking of?
Nutty.
Acorn?
Almond shape?
Almond. Acorn without the top. Almond is the right one.
Very weird shaped eyes. You have acorn with the top shaped eyes. Well, Elordi plays it with such childlike vulnerability. Apparently, he's studied infant development
Oh,
to perfect his portrayal and like how babies are fascinated by their hands and the way he plays with the chains and the leaves and the way he kind of crawls along watching the leaf. I thought it was really beautiful.
that is a cool thing that actors do that I don't think I ever realized, even though I went to acting camp. A lot of it is doing these observational aspects. In the How Did This Get Made About Cats, that they went to like a cat imitation school or something like that. Like,
At imitation school?
yeah, some crazy specialty like that. But like, there's stuff like that out there for actors. So they
Okay.
are spending their time doing that type of prep as well. It's not just like coming up with your backstory and your mannerisms and all that, which is
Yeah.
hard too.
But at the same time, he's really capable of being menacing.
Mm.
And yeah, as we've talked about, he's this innocent until he's corrupted by Victor's cruelty and neglect. I mean, one thing I feel like I never really felt unsafe with this creature. Like I was a little tense when Elizabeth comes down and there's the glove scene.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, is this going to go tell me about the rabbits, George, of Mice and Men because he doesn't know his own strength? Is he going to
Right.
harm her in some way? But he's still very sweet and gentle in that moment.
In that scene, when she notices he's cut like where Jesus is cut.
Yes. Stigmata, right?
Yeah, you would
And the
know.
hand.
That's not a thing we discuss in my church.
There's crucifixion imagery, which ties in with the idea of resurrection. And that also ties into our Tuskegee episode with body snatchers who were called resurrection men. But yeah, he's a child of a charnel house. And yeah, he's just so lonely. All he wants is a companion, a friend. And when he pats himself on the head with the old man, I think it broke my heart.
I think it's around the time that he sees the deer get shot, which made me think of My Cousin Vinny. But he mentions they'll hunt you and kill you just for being who you are.
Yeah.
And that...
Very relevant.
Yes, very relevant. How lovely that the creature encountered this family and then this man. I mean, it's essential for the story, but I feel bad about how little I have to say.
I loved that whole section. It's very like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, he's friends with the mice, like little rats or mice or whatever on his shoulders. It's like a reprieve from the horror of everything else. And then obviously it all falls apart. I think it's the heart of the story. If only he'd survived. And he's the one who kind of prompts the creature to forgive and let it fade. I noticed the emphasis on the word fade. Like Elizabeth talks about fading. The old man talks about letting the harm fade. And at the end, I think Victor, somebody in the final scene, there's another fade quote. And just all the nice little details. As he's teaching the little girl to read, he holds up cards that say a boy and an eye.
Mm-hmm.
And he's behind with the eye. So just some great details there.
There were a lot of moments throughout where I was like, really, this timing at this moment, that it's so heartbreaking for the creature.
Yeah, that the family comes home as the wolves have
Right.
just attacked. If they had come home like 10 minutes earlier, they would have seen him killed, or even 2 minutes earlier, they would have seen him kill the wolves. So he had this chance. If the grandfather could have said, no, this guy's okay, he had a
Right.
chance at a family.
Well, and same with when Elizabeth dies. If everyone hadn't entered the room at that moment, they would know who's really responsible.
Yeah. And also, I was a little mad at the captain of the ship because he knows. He knows that this creature is capable of humanity. And I understand the sailors might be a bit resistant to him, like, joining their crew because he murdered a bunch of them, but he should have been like, why don't you stay with us? I will introduce you to society when we get back. So I was mad at the captain for not giving him a chance there.
His character only had room for one arc, and that was not focusing on the sunk cost fallacy, which I think we've
Yes.
done that straight through the whole podcast.
Yes. It's an important message.
Yeah.
You said you made a connection to Stranger Things when we were talking about this before. And I feel like I know what it is, and I want to see what you say.
Okay, so the first thing, actually, there was like a chime in the scene that we talked about where she's eating the thing with the blood. There's a chime. But there was also, I thought, a circular window in Stranger Things.
Maybe in the attic scene when Jason gets.
What did you think it was? It was not deep.
I thought it was going to be when the old man calls him a friend and he like repeats friend. And
Oh.
you know how 11 talks about friend a lot in the early seasons. So that was my like, oh, I wonder if that's what it was.
No, it was definitely like a visual or a sound effect. Like it was a
Okay.
accessory aspect.
Yeah, he also leans into cheeks. Like if somebody puts their hand on the cheek, he leans in
Mm.
and it's gorgeous.
My dog
And
does that.
one of my favorite aspects of the creature is the way he can do so much with the one word, Victor,
Mm.
right? Like that first time he points to himself and he's like, oh, am I Victor? And then he says it with hope, seeking connection. And then he's screaming it in rage at one point, and then in pain and fear as the tower is burning. So it's one word and he's acting so much with it. 11 in Stranger Things, the way she says Papa in different ways, it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
that actually is something I did know that actors do because my brother was in acting at the college he went to. I'm a lot younger than him. I think we've mentioned that before. And I shadowed him in an acting class, and they each got on pieces of paper words that they had to like express in every sort of way they could imagine you would express that one
Mm.
word.
Oh, Lordy did it well with Victor.
Like, these pretzels are making me thirsty.
Exactly like that. You're doing George, right? Is that
Yeah.
George takes it to the extreme?
Yeah.
Is Elaine more like, these pretzels are making me thirsty?
Yeah. Well, that sounded
Yeah.
like her. I can only remember how George did it and just the scene as a whole just being so good.
It's a great scene and really shows what some actors can do with one line and how they do it differently. Fun. Well, let's talk about Elizabeth. Mia Goth. She has become quite the darling of the horror world. She's in this recent trilogy, Pearl, X, and Maxine, and is really good in that. I'm guessing you haven't seen them.
No.
Did you notice that she played Victor's mother too?
No.
I didn't know either. I found out after the fact. Did not recognize her. I mean, obviously, you can do a lot with makeup, but that's her.
Wow. Creepy.
Mm.
Because she like marries her baby then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that's why Victor likes her so much, right?
No,
It's a
yeah,
bit
yeah.
Freudian,
Total.
Oedipal. Yeah.
Well, the colorful dresses or whatever made that clear to me, but I didn't even know. I mean, I guess because I was looking at the dresses so much, I didn't notice her face as much.
Well, they do really change her face because I've watched it twice now, and the first time I didn't know, and the second time I was like studying the face, and still it's like, okay, I can see it in the eyes, but they did a thorough job with the prosthetics or makeup or whatever.
This reinforces our Andrew Garfield.
No, I'm not taking that on board.
No, no, no.
I'm
I mean,
100% on Jacob Elordi.
no, but it reinforces like you can change everything about the face, but not the eyes.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you were saying it reinforces that Andrew Garfield could have done it, and I was like, I object.
Yeah.
No,
No.
he could have done it. I just think Jacob Elordi did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
So she's a woman of her time, lacking choice. She says choice is the seed of the soul. She's the trapped butterfly, but she also is involved in trapping the butterflies.
It's hard to comment on not fully being able to understand all the implications of choosing not to be aristocracy, for example. But yeah, I had written down her lecture about choice.
Definitely giving Rose from Titanic.
Yes, and also Sense and Sensibility and the newer iteration of Little Women. Yeah, there's a lot out there that discusses this aspect of our history in a way that I don't think we heard growing up.
She's an improvement on Book Elizabeth, who's just there to be married and killed.
Hmm.
Also, an improvement on 1931 movie Elizabeth. So she's not necessarily just there to scream and faint. And I like that she's kind of a weirdo, right? It's not too popular to be the girl into bugs at any time in history.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of disenchanted with the world and
war.
And war. Yes. Strong
Loved-
anti-war message from her.
I loved it, and it's still accurate. I felt like it was a very poignant and forever true position.
Yeah. And Harlander is a weapons dealer. So all that cash that is funding this project is off the gruesome deaths of young men, as Elizabeth points out, and then used to pursue his own selfish goal of everlasting life. He's profiting in things that kill others while thinking he deserves to live forever. And he's very dismissive of her. He's clearly heard her make this speech before because he's like, I'm going to go off and have my brandy or whatever as she starts to talk about it.
Knowing that that's her family, I guess I would also be like, why are you sitting here benefiting off the blood money that this thing you oppose has provided you? But again,
I guess that is always a hard decision to make.
I say that with current day options, which I know are different.
Yeah. Like, what is she going to do?
Right.
There's not a lot of options. As Rose's mom says, like, do you want to see me working as a seamstress? Which that would be a really
Yeah.
bad job. Like 12-hour days, factories burned down throughout
Yeah.
history. So like a
Yeah,
seamstress doesn't sound so bad by our standards, but in that time in history, pretty shitty.
totally.
Yeah, it's a great quote. Men are dying for them in a decidedly unelevated way, face down in the mud, choking on blood, screaming in pain. Men that were fathers, brothers, or sons to someone out there. Men that were fed, cleaned, and nursed and schooled into this world by their mothers, only to fall on a battlefield far away from those that provoke these tragedies. Those men remain at home, untouched by the blood or bayonet, their skin unpierced, their blankets warm and clean. So this establishes her as very empathetic, which is reinforced in her treatment of the creature.
And I just want to note, like, our societal concept of violence is graphic and explicit in this way, but I also think we talked about echoes of this in Who is Accountable in Tuskegee. This is the same truth that exists in white collar crime. It might not be death, but it is suffering, and it is servitude in systems that have forced labor. And, like there's ways that nonviolence is violent.
And it seems that direct violence is what's punished.
Exactly. And not even by the people who direct the direct violence.
Yeah. She's also a bit of a Dr. Ian Malcolm, the moral compass, asking, should you be doing this? Have you thought about what you're doing? Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. So I like Elizabeth. I like that they gave her more of a personality than Mary Shelley gave her, but I do have some criticism. I think it's not enough. What do you think?
I agree.
I read somewhere that this was originally going to be a trilogy and that she might have had her own movie and been the one that gets perhaps reincarnated or almost brought back to life. As I said in the book, Victor does promise his creature a companion, but then backs out. So it would have been, I think, really powerful to have him reanimate Elizabeth and then change his mind and end up destroying her. That would have been a really good rage-inducing scene, but it's already a 2.5-hour movie, right?
Yeah.
One other comment on Elizabeth. That hair. It's got really long hair.
Yeah, that's not all real.
No, it couldn't be. But imagine the split ends if it were. All right, let's talk a little bit more about William. He's just desperate for love from his big brother, seems to be trying to impress him in that his job as the project manager of the experiment, just sort of there to be in the way for Elizabeth, I guess.
Like, you can choose between this super deep suffering guy and this very basic life has been good for me guy. Tropes that we've experienced, like in The Notebook. The boring rich guy is also like really good. There's an opportunity to be like, sometimes things don't work out just because they don't, not because being a genuinely nice person who happens to have been well off in their life makes you not worthy of love. Like
Patrick Dempsey in Sweet Home Alabama,
which
right?
I haven't seen. I haven't seen that.
That's one of my husband's favorites. It comes on in our house with some frequency.
Well, if he likes it, I'm sure I would. But yeah, I always
think he
like
would.
that when it's like, you don't need to be like brooding Lord Byron, the collected works in my Porsche. Like you could be just a nice person who's also interesting and maybe hasn't had trauma and like good for you then,
Yeah. Yeah. Brooding can be tough to be around after the initial sexual thrill.
Is often, I would say, versus can be.
Well, and plus Victor's he's so narcissistic about it. She's a prize to be won. I think at one point he says, what about my pain? What you have denied my heart? Something along those lines. Ugh. He feels very entitled to her. And I'm glad she turns him down.
100%.
Any other awesome scenes? We've talked about the leaf scene. I love that. Anything else that you really liked?
Not that we haven't already talked about.
Oh, we didn't really talk about Harlander. Do we have anything else to say about him?
Is that Christoph Waltz?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a douche too.
Yeah. Great villain.
Great villain. If you need a villain, Christoph Waltz is your guy. He does it so beautifully. He was great.
I loved his power move after he goes to the toilet and he's like, flush that for me.
Oh, yeah. It reminded me of our spotlight conversation when he's like, oh, I got you. Yes, letting him into the party. Move. Yeah, power move.
Now, when I saw that hole in the tower floor, I was like, someone's going to fall through that. Don't put a hole in the floor of your story tower unless someone's going down.
It's so funny. You're like, you're like my husband. He's always like, "Where are the railings?" Everywhere in the Star Wars galaxy, long ago, far, far away, nobody has railings anywhere. Any structure.
Well, these are the sort of things an architect has to consider, right?
Right.
What is the scariest, most disturbing part for you?
That humans will hunt you and kill you just for being who you are. That's the reason that I'm interested in true crime as well. It's sort of this fascination with that extreme aspect and why and how does that happen? It's so horrible that like, let's figure out why to make it stop.
Make it stop. Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's possible.
No.
I think for me, the sawing of bodies was pretty gross. I think the scene that broke my heart the most was when the family comes home and blames him for killing the old man. The face whip when the dad whips him on the face. Like that was shocking and horrible. And yeah, maybe the grossest scene might just be when he lifts up Harlander's body after he's fallen through and his brains like drip out. That was pretty nasty.
You couldn't ask me to list how many scenes were horrifying for me.
Okay. Sorry. You'll get desensitized eventually, like me. All right. Deeper horrors beneath the surface. I think that we are not born to be monsters. The creature wouldn't have been murderous if Victor hadn't been abusive. And I like that the creature turns Victor's abuse back on him when he breaks his nose. It's icky to watch, but I love that line. If you are not to award me love, then I will indulge in rage. He didn't want to indulge in rage. It also reminded me of Wesley's threat to Humperdinck, to the pain. Your ears you keep, so that every shriek of every child at seeing your hideousness will be yours to cherish. My God, what is that thing? That the monster wants to cause Victor pain, to make him into the monster that he made him to be.
For me, the deepest horror is being trapped in a torturous situation, like he can't die. Where is he now? It's so horrific to be like, I just want it to be over and you can't. Not that I'm advocating ending anybody's life, but our lives all end. And then what is he going to do for the rest of eternity while he continues to lose people?
Loneliness, rejection, abandonment. Yeah,
that's part of that immortality. Like you can never feel more alone. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I married someone who I've known as long as I have. My husband and I met in high school, and it makes me feel very secure being like, this person has known this many iterations of me. That would be impossible for someone who lives generations beyond their peer species or whatever.
And you have the added issue in this case of not looking like
Right.
Liv Tyler. So the automatic.
Yeah.
Gailwyn? Is that her name?
Alwyn.
Arwen. He looks monstrous, so people's initial reaction is to reject him.
Right.
And react in fear. Well, that's one of my questions. I feel like the dynamite would have worked, right? Like if you can sever the body parts, surely it can't keep, like, are they going to crawl back to each other?
Okay, so the one thing I will say is I do understand very basically from science that energy can't be stopped. It just transfers, right? If you stop inputting energy into your body, that energy that you expend existing is going to die. Like there's no battery attached to him.
So it's just kind of the cycle that keeps going. So if you break the connection, like if you cut off his head, surely he's going to die, right? I feel like they haven't tried hard enough.
They haven't tried the head. Yeah, always go for the head, as we learned from the MCU. But also, if you don't eat, if you don't provide your body with the nutrients it requires to exist, it's going to decay on its own.
Right. There's no immortality of the creature in the book.
Oh, good.
In the end, it goes off to kill itself. It's like, I'm going to go off and build this pyre for myself.
Okay.
And
it's a painful way to go.
Yeah. Maybe that's where the fire that we see so much in different versions of this comes from, that he is intending to kill himself by fire. But Victor Laval, he's a horror novelist, and he wrote a graphic novel that I've started reading, but I haven't gotten too into it, about imagining that it's basically been in the Arctic this whole time, and it's still around.
Like Captain America.
Exactly like Captain America. The first part I read is he's like stopping whaling ships from like killing whales. So
is he directing the orcas to sink the yacht?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe that's what he's been up to this whole time. But if he found a way to live a life that brings satisfaction, saving the Arctic is a worthy pursuit.
Absolutely.
All right, well, other deeper horrors is child abuse. intergenerational trauma. Also reminded me of Carrie White's mom. We have a responsibility for what we bring into the world and the pain we cause, and Victor does not take that responsibility. Also, losing control of technology. Arguably, this is an allegory for so many technologies that we've lost control of, whether it's the tech bros today and the lack of ethics and the carelessness for the fallout, the way Victor just tosses the bodies out. I feel like today that's happening with freaking screens in primary school classrooms and AI and potentially genetic modification. Like, these are monsters that we have lost or will lose control of. And of course, Ultron. The treatment of bodies after death, the way we dehumanize those, which ties into Tuskegee. Burke and Hare, the resurrectionists who were digging up people and killing them in the early 19th century. We see this with the way Victor is assessing men awaiting execution and picking through bodies on the battlefield. By the way, I love that battlefield horse frozen was very cool. I don't know how that would happen, but I thought it was visually very stunning.
Yeah, I've seen like a frozen rat TikTok, but not a horse. I think that would take a lot.
Yeah, to like freeze in movement.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And I guess the way the powerful treat the powerless, for example, in the French Revolution, like treating peasants like dirt, created something that came back to bite them. And one thing that I want to point out about the novel, and I remember being really surprised by it when I read it, was that the monster talks about the fate of Native Americans. He says, I heard of the discovery of America and wept with Safie, who's this other character, over the hapless fate of its original inhabitants. And I thought that was so interesting that Mary Shelley had it on her mind that the indigenous people of America were getting treated like shit and had her monster feel bad for them. So she's kind of equating this creature with them in some way.
Amazing.
What an amazing social conscience that she would have had to even just know about that.
See, yellow wallpaper lady, it's possible.
By the way, I briefly looked up, I didn't look into it very much, but you asked last week what Charles Dickens would have thought about colonialism. And although it doesn't really come up in his books because they're very like his urban environment, not good.
Okay.
So, I did a quick look before, but his writings are very much, I guess, not generous in that respect. And so I found this in 1968. Dick Gregory, a civil rights activist, wrote The Shadow That Scares Me. And he uses Frankenstein to explore white responsibility for creating the conditions of violence. I think that just ties into the legacy of colonialism and the conflicts we have today. Like, you can only push people so far before they fight back. And, the way the language of monstrosity is used to dehumanize people like Michael Brown. It looked like a demon is what Darren Wilson said of him. So I think there's themes in this that tie into what's going on around the world and what probably always will.
And what we talked about in Tuskegee.
Yeah. Victor rejected one creation, but what if a society rejects a demographic, like a whole group of people? How will they react?
What if? Yeah.
What if? Yeah. When a society... All right, criticism. Not going to hear a ton of criticism from me because I chose this because I like it, but I do have a few things. I feel like Elizabeth's love for the creature wasn't developed enough for me to believe it.
Agree.
We see her going down like once or twice. I would have liked even if they didn't have to show the scenes, the implication that she's been there for a while and she's going down there regularly. I think that could have been made clearer. And then I would have believed the way she feels. I think she feels romantic love for him.
I agree.
What other criticism do you have that we haven't already discussed?
No, not a lot. I mean, to be fair, this is my actual introduction into this legendary story, so I don't have a ton.
I have heard some people say this is like the Twilightification of Frankenstein by making Elordi play him so appealingly and that he is much more monstrous in the novel. I don't buy it, but that is a criticism I have heard. I liked it.
Sorry, I find Edward to be monstrous in every adaptation. I guess.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's a comparison.
Or just making him like beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, fine. I wouldn't call that Twilight. I'd call that Hollywood.
Yeah. Sliding down the water tunnel to escape the fire felt a bit silly to me. I don't know. Just like a tonally out of place. It's long.
It is long.
It took me 3 nights to watch it because I can't stay up.
I think I did it across 3 days as well. 3 days/nights. Yeah.
The wolf CGI was not great. Reminded me of The Day After Tomorrow with the bad wolves in that, which is not good.
Terrible. Get the practical, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they probably spent so much of their budget on building sets and like a whole boat and
Yeah.
massive labs and everything and towers that they skimped on the wolf CGI. And they didn't need to have that many wolves. They could have animated 2 or 3 wolves instead of like 8 and still gotten the same effect. And my only other problem was I did feel like there were a few moments where it was kind of ham-fisted, like when William's dying words are, "You're the monster," right?
Yeah.
Would you say that?
Yeah.
And he uses the word conflagration. And I was like, what does that mean?
What does that
And who
mean?
talks like that? I looked it up. It's a large fire, a destructive fire. And I know why he included that only after looking it up, because the creature's final words in the novel are, "Soon I shall die, and what I now feel be no longer felt. Soon these burning miseries will be extinct. I shall ascend my funeral pile triumphantly and exult in the agony of the torturing flames. The light of that conflagration will fade away. My ashes will be swept into the sea by the winds. My spirit will sleep in peace. Or if it thinks, it will not surely think thus. Farewell." So that's the end. So he kind of took the creature's final words and gave some of them to William.
Nobody says all that when they're dying.
Well, this is the monster. He's like, "I'm going to go die now."
But still, he is also very young for that vocabulary. I don't know.
That is one of the criticisms of the book, is the way the monster talks is like a university-educated philosopher.
Isn't there that one celebrity whose last words were like, "fuck this shit" or something like that?
That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to look it up.
Questions? What's that green stuff? It's like ectoplasm?
Yeah.
It's like, what is this stuff? It looks like something Homer would be juggling at his job at the power plant. Plutonium canisters or something. Okay, and my other question, why don't these people ever go in their shed? The family. They've got the shed. And they don't go in. Like, I feel like he's so obviously there. There aren't that many places to hide. Yeah, and how is he self-healing? Again, that was not in the book. I have trouble understanding the angel scenes. When the red angel appears in a dream to Victor. I'm kind of like, what's going on there? I guess it's like the dichotomy between angel and demon, thinking he's doing good, but he's actually doing evil. I don't know. I wanted to look into that, and that's not something I managed to do. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. What do we learn from this? What do we take away? How do we survive better?
One thing I thought, what I learned, I guess, is what I Googled. I was looking up what Frankenstein means, because I think I mentioned in one earlier episode I was interested in like baby names and what they mean. Anyway, Frankenstein means conqueror. So I thought that was very relevant for that scientist to have as a name.
As he conquers death?
Or attempts to conquer all, I guess. But Ozymandias, the meaning, I guess, is the futility of power and hubris and arrogance. That parable described at the end is something I had never heard of. So I learned the stuff that I was like, oh, I wonder what the deeper meaning behind that is.
I feel like I studied Ozymandias in high school, but I remember nothing.
I definitely didn't.
I guess my takeaways, I understand if you saw an 8-foot-tall sewn-together creature coming at you that you would be scared, but I guess don't judge a book by its cover. Back to Stranger Things Season 4, the way Jason classifies Eddie as a freak, the way we classify people when we don't know them and view someone as a monster, and how wrong that is, and that we need to understand each other's humanity. If you bring life into this world, take care of it. Don't buy a puppy on Christmas unless you're going to actually do the right thing by it. Consider what comes after creation. And don't dismiss teenage girls. Mary Shelley, what a legend. All right, what's your palate cleanser?
Okay, so I think I mentioned at an earlier episode that my family and I, primarily me, when they want to, they join me. I'm watching all the Star Wars properties in timeline order. So that includes all the series, including the cartoons. Anyway, we made it to the OG Star Wars movies this weekend. And speaking of the embarrassing CGI, it is upsetting that you can't just watch the original versions and you have to watch the remastered versions. And
God, I hate those stupid things that George Lucas put back in there. It makes me so mad. Every time we watch Star Wars, my husband is like, "You're complaining about that again."
That scene with Jabba the Hutt walking and Han Solo, and the whole scene is like clearly should have been cut by an editor, to your earlier point about this book and Dickens. Like, if there were editors being like, "You don't need this because you already said that." Anyway, that scene is useless, and all it does is destroy the lore behind Jabba by making him walk around and looking like a cartoon. Anyway, that said, they are great movies, and I did see that in honor of their 50th anniversary, they will be releasing in theaters, at least in America. At select theaters, you can go and watch the original release version in the theater. So we're definitely going to do that. Anyway, that is my palate cleanser. And it also is relatable in terms of how they treat droids in that galaxy, being othered in a way that was totally not necessary and is constantly reiterated how unnecessary and not fair it is.
Which is also explored in Westworld.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's our homework?
In the spirit of being hunted down in one way or another by who you are, I did watch the new Netflix documentary on Eileen Wuornos. It's called Eileen, Queen of the Serial Killers. I think it's a very good commentary on a lot of the stuff we've talked about already here and very relatable. So that is our homework.
Interested to learn more about her. I think I saw the movie Monster like when it came out, but that's pretty much all I know. And maybe the occasional true crime podcast that has mentioned her. But
I have actually never watched a like adaptation of her, only true crime coverage. So okay. I wonder how enraged I'll be by a dramatization.
Are you going to watch it?
Maybe.
I might try to if I have time. I don't know. It's hard because I have my parents are visiting. They don't necessarily want to watch serial killer stuff. All right. What recommendations do you have?
Okay, I have a lot this time. Obviously, Little Shop of Horrors, My Cousin Vinny. I mentioned a lot of Marvel stuff. I do really think there's a lot of these messages in Marvel as well. Marvel has the whole Captain America tie-in with Nazis, and Nazi has the Christoph Waltz tie. So I'm going to reverse
and
engineer.
The Arctic.
And the Arctic and all that stuff. So Inglourious Bastards, Indiana Jones, Sound of Music. These are all great fighting Nazis or fighting people who hunt you down and kill you just for being who you are. I also mentioned Death Becomes Her, that I watched as a child that made me appreciate the value of this one life we all have. I also really related to and appreciated Elizabeth's vibe of being weird and feeling not for this world. And I always felt like a weird girl, and not in a cute manic pixie dream way that nobody actually is, but like in an authentically weird way. And so I always loved Alice in Wonderland as a young child. I always loved the We're All Mad Here reference. And then also Lydia Dietz in Beetlejuice. I myself am strange and unusual. I always related to that, so appreciate that. And then as well, the one scene when I actually liked Victor, they're dancing or whatever after he's faked to be the priest in confessional. It reminded me of the newest Little Women movie with Timothée Chalamet that I love. It has a cute dance scene at that party in the beginning when Joe and Laurie meet. It also has a great speech about choice, which I think we talked about earlier.
Like Titanic.
Yes. I also wanted to mention Dr. Death just for psychotic doctors.
Okay. Continuing our mad scientist.
The podcast. Any season of the podcast. They're all very good.
As I said, if you don't feel like reading or rereading Frankenstein, Book Cheat is the podcast I mentioned. You could try another epistolary novel. We didn't mention that this is told through letters in the book. The captain is writing home to his sister, but Carrie, which we cover, I believe, on episode 10 of our podcast, and Dracula are both epistolary novels that you might want to check out. There's a short story called The Monkey's Paw, which is another sort of gothic tale about the horrors of trying to subvert death and play God. I think it kind of leads to the Final Destination movies. The best podcast that I listened to about this was called Library Talks. It wasn't about the movie, but it was just about the novel and its legacy. It introduced me to Victor Laval and the graphic novel he's written and all that stuff about civil rights. And I just thought it was really an interesting take on it that I hadn't heard before. So that was called Library Talks, and I want to try that out in the future. For Bad Wolves, Yellow Jackets, and one of my extreme weather disaster comfort movies, The Day After Tomorrow. And that also has people freezing in place because the weather's so cold, like the horse must have done in that battle. For putting a body back together, Silence of the Lambs and Iron Man. That ribcage thing kind of reminded me of Iron Man. And then just for losing control of your creation, there's Jurassic Park, Terminator, Megan. I think Oppenheimer is kind of a real-life version of this. For a Frankenstein story that we haven't brought up yet, Edward Scissorhands, this creature that is viewed as a freak and used and abused and judged. And then just, there's all these Guillermo del Toro movies that I would like to watch, like Crimson Peak, Pinocchio, Hellboy, Blade 2 is Guillermo del Toro, Shape of Water, and Pan's Labyrinth, which I love and really want to rewatch. That's it for me. Thank you for listening. Please do all the things podcasters ask you to do, like and subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Threads, write a review on iTunes. You can email us at drawntodarknesspod@gmail.com. And most importantly, tell a like-minded friend who is also drawn to darkness. If, like Shirley Jackson, you delight in what you fear, join us in 2 weeks here at Drawn to Darkness. Special shout out to Nancy Azzano, who painted our cover art. You can find her on Instagram at Nancy Azzano, and to Harry Kidd for our intro and outro music. You can find him on Instagram at Harry J. Kidd and on Spotify.